Hello, Biz Bestie. Welcome back to the Maverick Mompreneur podcast, where we talk all things branding and online business. Today, we're going to expand from episode 123 a couple of weeks back, which was all about naming your digital product or products to sell, into a crucial topic that is going to impact your digital product sales as well. And that's what you sell your product for, your pricing. This is a hot topic amongst the Maverick Society members, with my clients, and just generally in our community. So specifically today, we're going to discuss how to price your digital products for maximum profit. Whether you're just starting out or you're looking to optimize your pricing for your existing products or your offer suite, this episode is going to be packed with insights and actual actionable tips you can take and implement in your business today. You're definitely going to want to grab something to take notes with, so go do that now while the intro plays if you haven't already. Hey mama, I'm Ashley, and this is the Maverick Mompreneur podcast, where you're free and encouraged to own your desire to create and scale an impactful, discoverable online brand and business in the midst of motherhood. A business that's aligned with your mission, lifestyle desires, personality, and zone of genius, without wasting your time on the hustle and grind hamster wheel that is social media. Can I get an amen? Sis, you are a maverick, an original, willing to stand out in your authenticity, defy expectations, and do life and business outside the box. In our world, if it's not aligned with who we are, it's a hard pass or a brave pivot. So if you're here for the powerful identity shift and transformation from boss babe or boss mom to aligned CEO, building a one-of-a-kind, influential, hustle-free online business that will produce long-term impact and multiple streams of income through SEO, affiliate marketing, and courses, while building yourself in the process, well, pop in those AirPods, grab that cup of coffee or glass of wine, and let's get growing. So let's get into this. Like I said before, this is a question I get all the time, and my answer is almost always, it depends, followed by asking a bunch of questions, because it does depend on so many different factors. However, pricing your product appropriately is huge, especially in the current state of the economy and with how saturated the marketplace is in a lot of niches, with people selling very similar things, or a lot of people in general selling things online. If you set your price too high, you risk scaring away people who could potentially be your customers. But then on the flip side, if you set it too low, you run the risk of undervaluing your work potentially and then leaving money on the table. So it's like, well, what do we do? I hope I'm going to help you break it down by sharing some key strategies to help you find the sweet spot in between too high and too low. But first, let's actually talk about why is pricing so critical. And this is something that I had to learn the hard way. So little bird walk here. Back in early 2020, when I first launched my business, we were just starting a global pandemic, a shutdown of out here in California anyway. I know I personally stayed in my home for about 6 months. At that time, the economy was in a different state. Everyone was at home with more time to spend on courses, on programs, which is what I was initially selling, was higher ticket group programs and one-on-one. If I tried to launch in that exact same way now, given the state of my industry and also the state of the economy, that probably wouldn't work in the same way, especially not for a newer business owner. So as always, I want to give you strategies that work today. So let's talk about the psychology of pricing. Pricing isn't just picking a number. There's actually a psychological component to it. Research shows that consumers perceive the value of a product based on its price. According to a study that was published in the Journal of Consumer Research, consumers often associate higher prices with higher quality. This is a phenomenon that's known as quote unquote price quality signaling. So if you price your digital product too low, then potential buyers might perceive it as low quality. I will give a caveat to this, that if you are selling digital products right now, low ticket, high value is, in my niche anyway, in the online online business coaching. That is what is selling well right now. So you may have seen my branding and online business toolkit. That toolkit is stacked. It is well worth over $1,000 of content within, but my strategy around that is very different. I want my ideal client to be able to find that and get a taste of my philosophies, the way that I do branding and online business all in one place so they can get a really good feel for how I teach, what my curriculum and supplementary materials look like, especially if they're not a podcast listener, because for you, if you're listening to the podcast, you already know we've gotten to know each other over the last couple of years. There are tons of episodes, but it's really hard to do that in a product. And so I just want my first introduction to be an easy yes. It's $22, which I know is so ridiculous. My members literally are constantly saying, I can't believe that you're selling that for $22. And my response is, well, no, there's strategy behind it. I realize it's more valuable than that. That's always in the show notes as well. If you don't have the toolkit, get it. I add to it pretty frequently. And there's also a bunch of supplementary worksheets for podcast episodes that can help you to go deeper. So definitely get that, because then you'll get the other worksheets and things as they're added. But that caveat was, again, to give just a little bit of a devil's advocate counter example of the price quality signaling, where if you price it too low, people might perceive it as low quality, especially if that's not a trend in your industry. So like I said, we're going to talk about some key strategies. Strategy number one, if you're taking notes, is understanding your costs. So this includes not only the cost of creating the product. If you're creating a digital product, this most likely just involves maybe the Canva platform if you're paying for Pro, or Photoshop, or anything like that if you need. But for the most part, creating digital products doesn't cost money to actually create the product. But you also need to understand and consider your marketing, any other platform fees. So if you are setting up a digital sales funnel, you need your email marketing service, you need your course host or your digital product host, unless you're using Google Drive or something like that, and any ongoing support you might offer. So that would be your time cost. So by getting in that clear picture of what all your expenses are, you can set a base price that's going to make sure that you cover your costs and you make a profit. You want to price in an attractive way that's not too high, but you can't sell something at too low of a price where you're not going to make a profit, especially if you have a small audience. You're not going to make a profit if you are selling a $7 ebook only with a small audience and you're spending money on Kajabi and on ActiveCampaign or whatever you're using for your email marketing. Does that make sense? So you want to make sure you set your price to make sure that you're covering your costs and you can make a profit. Okay, so that's strategy number one, is really understanding your costs so that you don't price yourself out of profit. The second strategy is knowing your market. And this is huge. The market really does dictate pricing. You can want to sell something for $597, but if the market is not biting at that price, you can't sell it for $497. And I've learned this the hard way. And I've since learned that this is a really, really key part of profitably selling digital products by a lot of testing. So I'm giving you major shortcuts in this episode. So how do you know your market? Conducting market research. By conducting market research, you're able to understand what similar products that are being sold in the marketplace are priced at. So Google your competitors, look at what they're selling on Instagram, go to their link in bio, check it out and see what similar products are being priced at. Now that doesn't mean you have to match their prices, but it does give you a realistic benchmark. For example, if there is a similar digital course to what you have created or you want to create priced at $97, pricing yours at $27 might raise questions about the quality of your course, but also pricing it at $297 might require additional value or justification, and it's definitely going to require a very killer sales page if you're jacking up the price on a similar course. To give you an example of this, a more recent example, I have a course right now called the Passive Digital Product Funnel Lab. It is where I teach in exquisite exquisite detail exactly how I do all the things that I'm talking about, from creating digital products in either Kajabi or Canva, housing those digital products, setting up the sales funnel system so that you can make sales on autopilot, and then also driving traffic through podcasting, Instagram, Pinterest, and a website. So it's a hyper comprehensive course. I actually have purchased 3 different competitor courses just to feel really confident in pricing my course based on the content that I know my course has, the experience that I have, the success, all of that, versus competitors. And mine is just plain better structure-wise and content-wise, in my humble opinion, but truly it's really freaking good. And these courses are priced differently. There's some that are similar that are $97. There are some that are $297, $247, $197. And so I've had to play around a lot with what is the sweet spot that is converting in my sales funnel. It doesn't matter if I think it's worth $297 or $247 or whatever, but if no one's purchasing it at that price point, that tells me that I either need to do a better job in my marketing on the sales page of describing why it's different, why it's so hyper valuable, or I need to drop the price and have more conversions that way. And so sometimes you just have to play around with things and see what works. But honestly, it's really not always based on the value of the course they're in. It's perceived value level, firstly. So I can know all day long how much value is in a course, but if the perceived value is lower in the marketplace because of someone's perception of me and my success, or because of the sales page or whatever it might be, if you want to check out that sales page, that is also linked down in the show notes, and you can see how it is currently priced. So not to get too nerd alert here, but I always like to share any relevant research. And another interesting piece of research is from the Harvard Business Review, and that indicates that consumers are more likely to purchase a product if they perceive it as a good deal compared to others in the market. This means pricing your product competitively, bundling offers, and also discount strategies can be effective. So people love a good deal. I know I do. That gets me all the time. You know, when you're shopping on Amazon and you're kind of thinking about purchasing something anyway, and then they just give you that little arbitrary 5% discount code checkbox, and you're like, yes, done. That's how you want your marketing to be when it comes to discount strategies. Just make it so there's a no-brainer little extra boost that is a limited time. There's so many different factors, but I want you to think of it that way. Next time you purchase something that you weren't expecting or searching to purchase, I want you to really analyze why. There's so much psychology when it comes to buying and pricing and all these things. I find it fascinating. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. I feel like marketing has ruined me forever because I look at every single thing as marketing. I was talking to a Maverick Society member and dear friend of mine, and a huge part of her life and also her brand, one of her brand pillars is faith in Jesus Christ. And so we were talking about how sharing your testimony is essentially marketing for a relationship with Jesus Christ, and how many Christians have what I deemed as Christian imposter syndrome when it comes to sharing their testimony, because they feel like, in the same way that all of us get imposter syndrome in our business if we don't keep it in check, where we feel like we either have to be perfect, or we can never have made mistakes, or we still don't know certain things, so therefore we can't show up. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, I am now literally talking about imposter syndrome when it comes to evangelism. This is a whole nother level, but that's just how my brain works, and I think it's helpful to my clients. Okay, so let's get into strategy 3. We had number 1, understanding your costs. Number 2, knowing your market. And then number 3 is going to be something called value-based pricing. So essentially this is setting a price based on the perceived value to the customer rather than the cost to produce it. So you almost have to take your mind out of that. And in digital product land, the cost to produce it is often associated with time. So here's some questions to ask yourself. How much is this product worth to my target audience? So think about, what problem does it solve and how significant is that problem? The more value that your product provides, the higher higher the price that you can command. With that caveat, going back to the market is really going to dictate that. Your industry, your niche, and the competitive pricing around that is going to dictate what you can charge. But if you have a product that solves a problem that is very pressing, someone is going to be more inclined, especially if it's more rare. So say it's a setting up an escape plan to get out of a toxic relationship. Now, you don't want to price that too high because maybe someone in that situation couldn't afford it, but you also don't want to price it too low because that is a pressing need. And so you have to find that sweet spot. So you got to analyze all of this stuff. I know it's like, oh my gosh, can't I just slap a sticker on it proverbially? No, you can't. I mean, you can, but then you're going to go through an adjustment period, and think of it as fun. I love to think of all things marketing as really fun and exciting, and we're learning new things and we're testing things out. And you have to think of it that way because it's always a journey. You're not going to get to a point where like everything's clicking and working and then it just works forever. That's not the nature of the beast when it comes to online marketing and brand building. So again, strategy 3, value-based pricing. The more value your product provides, the higher the price that you can command. So even if it takes you a ton of time to create, you kind of have to throw the time cost out the window because it's not about your time and valuing your time. Your time is so valuable. If I charged my hourly rate on what it took to produce Passive Digital Product Funnel Sales Lab, that course would be like $10K. That is an intense, very time-consuming course on my part as far as planning. Not so much the recording, but the curriculum itself, the amount of work that went into it, and the years of knowledge. But you can't price based on that. It's the perceived value to your customer, not your perceived value of the product or the time cost that it took. Does that make sense? Let's move on to strategy 4. And this is a whole nother podcast episode series in and of itself, but it's psychological pricing. And I'm just going to give you the bare bones basics because you might have been wondering about this, as I know I did before I got into pricing my own products. So this whole concept involves using pricing tactics that influence perception of your potential buyer. So for example, pricing a product at $97 instead of $100, even though it's only a few dollars difference, that can make it seem significantly cheaper due to something called the left digit effect, where we as consumers focus more on the leftmost digits of a price. So you'll often see courses and digital products, memberships, things like that, priced with a 7 at the end, $4.97, $2.97, $1.97. That is because of this left digit effect. So just something to consider when you're pricing your offer. Now, maverick that I am, sometimes I like to take that and then put a little spin on it. For example, the branding and online business toolkit, I could have easily priced that at $27. That is a perfect digital toolkit price. However, there are a bunch of other people selling course bundles and things like that that are very different than my product, but also floating around in ads and on the internet for $24. So I took some of these principles and I wanted to undercut my competitors and sell my product that hopefully I've created a great perceived value because I know what's on the other side of it. And I priced it at $22. And so that's converted really well because it's like, oh my gosh, less than anything on the market, 22, no brainer. 27 would have been great though. And I don't know that it would have made a huge difference, but I do think given the competition and how they're priced, I think that was a good move. And then my last strategy that I have for you today for this episode on pricing your digital products to make max revenue, this is tiered pricing and bundles. So multiple pricing tiers can cater to different segments of your audience. For example, you can offer a basic version of your digital product at a lower price point. So maybe it's the self-paced version of a course, and a premium version with extra features or services added on. Maybe they get a little bit of one-on-one consultation with you at a higher price. I did this when I first launched my Maverick Society membership. I had different tiers that you could enter the membership on. So from the base membership to the VIP membership, where I offered quarterly done for you time, and then the elite membership, which encompassed all of the above, and then also a 1 hour one-on-one call. And I still do offer that. It's just not on the sales page, but that is a great way to meet the different needs of different segments of your audience. And then bundling products together can also add perceived value and encourage customers to spend more. So if you look at my store page, if you go to elevatedwithashley.com/courses, you'll see there's an entire section of bundled courses that are at a reduced price point, but the graphics, you'll see the mock-ups, which is also a really important part of selling digital products. That's going to be a future episode, but you'll see the mock-ups show the bundles, and then it's obviously a lower price to get more than one course, and they're all tied together in a nice little bow. All right, so let's recap the strategies that we've gone over today. We've got strategy one, I can't say that word. Strategy 1, understand your costs. Strategy 2, know your market. Strategy 3, implement value-based pricing. Again, perceived value of your consumers in the marketplace, not your actual value of the product. 4, use psychological pricing. And 5, offer tiered pricing and bundles. And now is the part where I'm going to give you some action steps so that you can go out and implement this today. The first thing I want you to do is a cost analysis. So list all of your costs. If you don't have a profit and loss spreadsheet, please go snag the $22 branding and online business toolkit. It's worth the $22 just to get my profit and loss spreadsheet. That thing will save you so much time in tax season, and it'll also give you a way for you to list all your costs that are involved in creating, marketing, and delivering your digital product. You can't really put in your time, but you can kind of think of that in the back of your mind. So do a cost analysis, use that profit and loss spreadsheet. It'll automatically add, subtract, all the things that you need. Second, got your cost analysis. Now you're going to do market research. So I want you to identify and analyze pricing of similar digital products in your niche, especially your competitors, and list them out. 3, I want you to start testing. Don't be afraid to experiment with your pricing. Don't get stuck there. If it's not selling at that price point, the whole name of the game is literally adjusting. Every single day I am looking and analyzing and adjusting. Nothing works out the gate. That is extremely rare, especially with these types of things. So don't be afraid to experiment. You're going to monitor your sales and just be ready to adjust if needed. If you don't sell anything, that doesn't mean nobody likes you and your offer sucks. It doesn't mean that, but it does mean that there is something to improve upon. So what you can't do is quit. This is where most people go out of business or just don't go on because they can't handle the perceived failure, but that's part of the game. You have to fail so many times. The difference between the master and the beginner is that the master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried. Pause that, rewind it, listen to it again. I'm going to stop yapping. That's it for today's episode on pricing your digital products for maximum profit. I hope that you found these insights and strategies helpful. Remember, the right pricing can make a very big difference in your business's success, and that there's no one method that I can give you, one price point I can give you that you're not still going to have to adjust because there's so many factors. So if you have any questions or you want to share your experiences or you want coaching, I encourage you to join my coaching membership, the Maverick Society, where we always continue the conversation every day, every week. And I'm currently offering a $1 1-week trial so that you can get in there, you can check everything out, and then you can feel completely comfortable with your investment in your business. So if you're interested in that, check out a link in the show notes or head to elevatedwithashley.com/Maverick. Thanks as always for tuning into the podcast. And until next time, keep building your authentic and profitable personal brand, and cheers to your impact. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a ton of value. And if you did, I would really appreciate if you would rate, subscribe, and review this podcast. It really helps push out the message that I have to share with other female entrepreneurs. Thank you so much.